In the contemporary macroeconomic landscape, romantic courtship has increasingly intersected with escalating overhead costs. For decades, the conventional protocol for an initial romantic encounter remained elegantly straightforward: a formal dinner, premium beverages, and an assessment of mutual chemistry. In the current economic climate, however, this traditional playbook has transitioned from a standard baseline into a luxury asset. Data from the BMO Real Financial Progress Index indicates that the average aggregate cost of a single date in the United States has escalated to $189, with millennials averaging $252 per outing and Generation Z trailing slightly behind at $205. When adjusting for regional surges in major metropolitan hubs such as New York, San Francisco, and Chicago, a single evening out routinely breaches the $200 threshold prior to the presentation of the primary course. This financial pressure has manifested as dateflation, an economic and cultural phenomenon that is fundamentally altering modern courtship. Faced with substantial liabilities at the conclusion of an evening, single individuals are systematically abandoning the traditional dinner date in favor of a new romantic paradigm characterized by highly curated, low-stakes, and financially transparent casual engagements. To understand how an initial date evolved into the financial equivalent of a monthly utility obligation, economists point to a cumulative compounding of post-inflation pricing across multiple service sectors. The $200 price tag is rarely isolated to food consumption. Rather, it represents an entire ecosystem of modern expenses that impact a consumer's capital before, during, and after the actual encounter. Planning a traditional date night involves several distinct financial layers that culminate in a total aggregate cost of $226. The evening begins with pre-date grooming and apparel, allocating $45 for hair maintenance, cosmetics, dry cleaning, or specific wardrobe acquisitions. Getting to and from the venue incurs a transportation and rideshare fee of $35, which accounts for two-way transit during peak hour commuter surge pricing. Once at the mid-tier bistro, dinner entrees and an appetizer total $70 for two standard main courses and one shared starter, which is complemented by $48 for libations and cocktails, covering 4 artisanal beverages split between both parties at roughly $12 to $15 per unit. Finally, service fees and hospitality taxes add an additional $28 to cover mandated local taxes and a standard 20% gratuity, bringing the baseline economic entry fee for the evening to its final total. Personal finance experts note that this inflation extends beyond menu prices, which have risen consistently due to supply chain pressures and elevated labor costs. The current valuation reflects the total production cost of exiting the domicile. Rideshare services that previously commanded a $15 fee now routinely require $30 under standard surge conditions, and artisanal cocktails in major urban centers frequently cost $18 prior to the assessment of tax and gratuity. When factoring in cosmetic preparation, apparel maintenance, and premium subscriptions to dating applications merely to secure an initial match, the financial threshold for entry into the dating market has become disproportionately high relative to median salaries. This economic strain has generated a K-shaped dating economy. On one end, a statistically small demographic of high-earning singles continues to spend lavishly, often exceeding $300 per engagement, without experiencing financial friction. Conversely, nearly half of single Americans, 47%, report that traditional courtship practices are no longer financially viable, prompting a structural behavioral shift across major demographics. Alternatives to the traditional dinner first date. The most immediate casualty of dateflation is the formal dinner invitation. Proposing a sit-down meal to an unverified acquaintance from a digital platform is increasingly perceived as a high-risk, low-reward gamble. Consumers frequently note that committing to a dinner date mimics the execution of a binding financial contract prior to establishing mutual compatibility. It locks participants into a multi-hour commitment, costing upwards of $150, even if a lack of chemistry becomes apparent within the opening minutes of the interaction. Consequently, formal dining is increasingly viewed as a privilege earned over time rather than a baseline introductory standard. Quantitative research supports this caution. A study conducted by J.G. Wentworth revealed that 60% of active daters believe spending expectations have reached historic highs, with a vast majority expressing hesitation or declining invitations entirely if the projected cost exceeds the $100 threshold. The compounding risk of dating fatigue and capital depletion has necessitated a comprehensive restructuring of the courtship process. Rather than withdrawing from the romantic market entirely, younger cohorts are actively revising the rules of engagement to prioritize minimal financial exposure, brevity, and maximum behavioral flexibility, reserving high-end dining for established milestones.